Hey, hello, hi, it's me, KJ Speaks, and you're listening to Seated with the Word with me, KJ Speaks, on the station that heaven listens to, vibraradio.fm. So, welcome back, everyone, or welcome in if it's your first time. I'm really glad that you're here tonight, and if you've been riding with us for the past almost 7-8 weeks, we are in the Gospel of John, and we have been talking through some very serious territory. We have gone from watching Jesus feed 5,000 people with basically nothing, and we've also watched and spoke about him walking on water. We talked about the crowd trying to make him king and then him slipping away quietly into the hills. And now we are in John chapter 8. Really excited about this. And I need you to settle in tonight because this chapter, this one right here, it just might be the most confrontational thing Jesus ever said in public that we will witness in this chapter. And he's not whispering in this chapter. He is not speaking in soft parables by water. He is standing in the middle of the temple courts in Jerusalem, right, where all the holy work and religious work happens at the height of one of the biggest festivals of all the Hebrew calendar year. And he is making claims that will either change everything about how you see him or make you want to walk away entirely. And so there is no middle ground that is offered in John chapter 8. And I'm super excited to get into it with you. And as you know, I always love to give context. So we're going to be talking about a woman, a trap, and the ground. So let's go ahead and jump into verses 1 through 11. And I'll read it here out loud. So John chapter 8, verse 1. Let's turn to it. It says, Jesus returned to the Mount of Olives, but early the next morning he was back again at the temple. A crowd soon gathered, and he sat down and taught them. As he was speaking, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. Teacher, they said to Jesus, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say? They were trying to trap him into saying something they could use against him, but Jesus stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger. They kept demanding an answer, so he stood up again and said, all right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone. Then he stooped down again and wrote in the dust. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. Then Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you? ? No, Lord, she said. And Jesus said, neither do I. Go and sin no more. Okay. So good. So many thoughts, so many questions, so many concerns. So let's dive into it. I want us to really feel what's happening right now in the scene. This woman has been dragged, publicly humiliated, and probably barely dressed and placed in the center of a crowd of people. And the men standing around her are not concerned about her sin. They're actually just using her sin as a weapon to trap Jesus. So here is the Hebrew context that you need to know. The Feast of Tabernacles is happening, right? And it kind of just ended. And this is one of the great, 3 pilgrimage type of festivals where every Jewish man was required at the time to come to Jerusalem. And the city is packed, right? There's tons of people. The temple courts are full. And whatever Jesus says right now, thousands of people will hear it, right? So this isn't a small interaction. And if he says to stone her, he contradicts his own message of mercy and loses the crowd that loves him and is following him. And if he says don't stone her, then he appears to violate the law of Moses, and the religious leaders can have him then arrested. So it's a perfect trap. They're like, either way, we got him. And Jesus does something that they don't expect or predict at all. He bends over and he starts writing in the ground with his finger. Many questions come up. Like, this is one of the most quietly powerful moments in all of Scripture, because the same finger that wrote the law on tablets of stone at Sinai is now writing in the dirt. We do not know what he wrote. The text doesn't tell us what was written. And I think that is very intentional, because what matters is not what he wrote. What matters is what he said when he stood up from his writing as they were pressuring him. Let anyone who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at this woman. And then he went back down and kept writing. So one by one, from the oldest to the youngest, these men leave until no one is left standing there with this woman except for Jesus. And he says, no one has condemned you, not even I. And then he says, now go and leave your life of sin. Like, don't sin anymore. And this is something to sit with. This is a huge moment. He does not excuse what he did, what she has done. He says to leave your life of sin, but he also did not condemn her. He set her free. And that is who we are dealing with in this chapter. We are dealing with a God who sets you free from your sin. So a question I have for you is there something that you have been dragging into the center of your own life? Shame, a past decision, something you did, or something that was done to you that Jesus is asking you to let him address instead of letting the crowd define it for you? Okay, really good question to sit with. So let's talk about the part 2 of this chapter where he says, I am the light of the world. We'll go ahead and dive into verses 12 through 30. I am the light of the world. If you follow me, you won't have to walk in darkness, because you will have the light that leads to life. The Pharisees replied, you are making those claims about yourself. Such testimony is not valid. Jesus told them, these claims are valid even though I make them about myself. For I know where I come from and where I am going, but you do not know this about me. You judge me by human standards, but I do not judge anyone. And if I did, my judgment would be correct in every respect, because I am not alone. The Father who sent me is with me. Your own law says that if 2 people agree about something, their witness is accepted as fact. I am one witness, and my Father who sent me is the other. Where is your Father? They asked. Jesus answered, since you do not know who I am, you don't know who my Father is. If you knew me, you would also know my Father. Jesus made these statements while he was teaching in the section of the temple known as the treasury, but he was not arrested because his time had not yet come. Okay, so Jesus is still in the temple courts. He's still in front of a crowd, and he says all these amazing things. But most importantly, he says, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Now, here's some Hebrew context to make everything make sense. So during the Feast of Tabernacles, the temple had 4 enormous golden lampstands in the court of the women, the same court where Jesus is standing when he says what he says in those verses. And each lampstand held massive bowls of oil. When they were lit, they illuminated the entire city of Jerusalem. So these are huge, right? And the rabbi said that during the feast, there was not a courtyard in all of Jerusalem that was not lit by the reflection of that light. And so this is a really, really big deal. The celebration of the water drawing and the light was central to everything that happened in this place. So Jesus stands in front of these lampstands, and he says, I am the light of the world. Not a light, not one of the lights behind me. I am the light, capital T-H-E. And the Pharisees immediately push back, right? So that's why the context matters, right? They're like, you're testifying about yourself. Your testimony is not valid. And Jesus is like, actually it is. And actually, you don't know who you're talking to. And it's quite remarkable because he says, like, you judge me merely by human standards. And I pass judgment on to no one. But if I did judge, my judgment is just and right because I am not alone. And because I stand with my Father who sent me. Jesus is not backing down. He's not softening his claim. He's not cowering or anything like that. He is anchoring deeper in what he said. He's basically saying what the kids say, I said what I said. Right? And in the original Greek translation of this text, which is really important, and I want to bring it to the forefront of today's message, is that Jesus says, ego, I am, no predicate, just I am. That is the same language God used with Moses at the burning bush. I am who I am. And the crowd standing there would have recognized exactly what he was claiming, right? Because they're well read. So a reflection question I have is like, where in your life are you still trying to navigate by your own light? Whether that be your own understanding, your own plan, your own timeline, instead of following the one who said, I am the light, the way, the truth, and all of it. Okay? So the last section of John chapter 8 is the truth shall set you free. I'm going to read verses 31 through 47 to illuminate what's being described in this part of the chapter. Reads, Jesus said to the people who believe in him, you are truly my disciples if you remain faithful to my teachings, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. But we are descendants of Abraham, they said. We have been slaves. We have never been slaves to anyone. What do you mean you will be set free? Jesus replied, I tell you the truth. Everyone who sins is a slave of sin. A slave is not a permanent member of the family, but a son is part of the family forever. So if a son sets you free, you are truly free. Yes, I realize that you are descendants of Abraham, and yet some of you are trying to kill me because there's no room in your hearts for my message. I am telling you what I saw when I was with my father, but you are following the vice of your father. Our father is Abraham, they declared. No, Jesus replied, for if you are really the children of Abraham, you would follow his example. Instead, you are trying to kill me because I told you the truth, which I heard from God. Abraham never did such a thing. No, you are imitating your real father. They replied, we aren't illegitimate children. God himself is our true father. Jesus says to them, if God were your father, you would love me because I have come to you from God. I am not here on my own, but he sent me. Why can't you understand what I am saying? It's because you can't even hear me. For you are the children of your father, the devil, and you love to do the evil things he does. He was a murderer from the beginning. He has always hated the truth because there is no truth in him. When he lies, it is consistent with his character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. So when I tell the truth, you just naturally don't believe me. Which of you can truthfully accuse me of sin? And since I am telling you the truth, why don't you believe me? Anyone who belongs to God listens gladly to the words of God, but you don't listen because you don't belong to God. Okay. Lots to unpack. This section is for everyone who has ever thought they were free, but was actually still in chains, right? Because Jesus makes that abundantly clear when he's speaking to the Jews who had believed him, right? Like people who were on his side. And he says to them, if you hold to my teachings, then you really are my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And these people who believe him start to push back immediately. They're like, hold on, wait a minute. What you mean set me free? We're descendants of Abraham, right? We have never been slaves to anyone. We're already free is what they're saying. So what are you trying to say? And just like historically, like that statement is remarkable because Israel had been enslaved in Egypt, and then they had been exiled to Babylon, and they were currently living under Roman occupation. And they said, "We have never been slaves," which tells you that the bondage that Jesus is talking about goes much deeper than political or physical circumstances. And even in that moment, the people are still delusional as if Rome doesn't have them captive. And he says to them, like, very truly, I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. And the Hebrew word for truth is emet. And the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, that middle letter in the last letter, the rabbis taught that emet, truth, spans everything from beginning to the end. It's not a partial word. It is not a situational word. It is complete. It is to describe complete truth. So Jesus is not offering a truth. He is offering emet, the whole thing, the beginning and the end. And then he says something that stops the conversation entirely, which is really reflective for them. And he says, like, before Abraham was born, I am. And here goes that word again, ego eimi. Before the father of your entire nation existed, I am. Not I was, I am, present tense, outside of time, existing outside of time. The crowd picks up stones to throw them at him in the text, and Jesus slips away through the crowd, right? Because the people are like, what? What are you saying? So, question for you. What truth have you been avoiding because holding to it will require you to change something? Right? Like if you let it go, what would you have to change? Because Jesus is not saying the truth will be comfortable. He is saying the truth will set you free. And those are not always the same things. So, in closing, John chapter 8 is a beautiful chapter, and it contains a whole lot of theology, right? And I ask you to spend time and dig deeper. We go from a woman being dragged into shame as bait for Jesus, and then Jesus riding in the dirt and refusing to condemn her and refusing to leave her where she is, setting her free. Then you have a crowd in the most illuminated city in the ancient world, and Jesus saying, the light that we're celebrating was pointing to him. And people who thought they were free, Jesus tells them that they're in chains to their sin. And they're in shock or disbelief. And here's what I want you to carry out tonight with you past this study. The light, the truth, and the freedom Jesus is offering in this chapter are not three separate things. They are one. When you follow the light, you find the truth. And when you find the truth, you are set free. And the freedom that God offers, that Jesus offers, is not freedom from difficulty. It is not freedom from the sin, the shame, and the self-deception that you keep from becoming who God made you to be. Right? John 8 is simply saying the light, the truth, the free. It all belongs to you. So come and get it. Okay, guys, that's about all we have for tonight. But do stick around for the replay at 10 p.m. And also be sure to keep it locked for NYC's Chills replay with DJ Flores coming up at 9 p.m. Signing off from Chicago, it's me, KJ Speaks. Bye.